Hello everyone, Amazing Gamer 111 here, welcoming you back finally to another movie review, and today we are going to be looking at a childhood favourite, number one on the favourite childhood list, Wreck-It Ralph. And today I am not only doing this by myself, I am joined by someone who I have been doing multiple movie reviews with, including the Jurassic Park and World movies, Turning Red, the Ice Age films, a few of them at least, Little Blue.
Hello, I'm very happy to be part of this.
It's great to have you here. It's nice change of pace to have you featured in my reviews as well.
Yep, definitely.
So, folks, this, honestly, I didn't go too into detail about how this became my favorite movie, more just the story of the film or a little bit. But I went to go and see this movie in theaters at around the age of 13, I think, and it was advertised as like this big crossover movie between characters like Sonic and Mario and Pac-Man, and at the end of the day the film focused on four characters that we had never seen in video games before, and yet had taken quite the big risk. But when I walked out of the theatre, I was just thinking, wow, this was so much better than I could have ever thought. And I never imagined it would be my favourite movie from childhood, but walking out of that theatre I knew, because I was big on video games when I was a kid, still am today, obviously, hence the name, The Amazing Gamer, but I love this movie, and I think after one of my reviews, or just a talk with Little Blue, I learned that this wasn't a Pixar movie, this was purely a 3D animated Disney movie. Pixar didn't have anything to do with it.
Yep, that is correct.
So, before we dive into the main story, what are your thoughts on the movie?
Well, I mean, honestly, I love Wreck-It Ralph. It's one of the best, and from the 2010 decades, of Disney animation films. And I remember, back when I was probably 11 years old, and I remember seeing the trailers for Wreck-It Ralph, and even whenever my family and I we would go see a movie in theaters, and they would run the Wreck-It Ralph trailers, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, I mean, I've seen like the TV promos and TV spots promoting for Wreck-It Ralph, and I remember finally seeing it in theaters, and even at that time when because the film was with its trailers and just seeing characters like, say, Bowser and Robotnik and Sonic the Hedgehog, it was just mind blowing. And, even to the fans, like the video game lovers, of course, and, also Cubert being in there, etc. And finally, when it came out in theaters and just seeing it, my family and I, we really loved the film, and, it was just amazing how this movie turned out, and and I don't know, like, what people thought of it at first, like, oh, like if they were a bit nervous, stuff like that. But nope, when when it finally did came out, it was a success, and it turned out just amazing.
It really did, and really, like, it was the underdog in the advertising as well. Not a lot of eyes were drawn to this movie, but shortly after it came out and people went to see it in theaters, it grew just a bigger and bigger following and made bank at the box office as well, which resulted in a sequel quite a while later. But we'll get to the sequel another day, obviously, folks. So let's hop right into the story then, shall we? So the story begins with sort of a backstory explained by the main character, Wreck-It Ralph, played by John C. Reilly, how he's the bad guy of this game called Fix-It Felix Jr. So he, as the bad guy, his job is to destroy the building of Niceland and disturb the home of the Nicelanders, while his enemy, the good guy, well, not really his enemy, but in the context of the game, his enemy, Fix-It Felix, played by Jack McBrayer. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
McBrayer, yeah, that's I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, and his job is to basically fix all the mess that Ralph makes throughout the game, and by the end of the game, Felix gets a medal and Ralph gets chucked off the building into the mud, and then it's game over. And he's been doing this for 30 years, and when it comes to the big 30-year anniversary, Ralph goes to this bad guy meeting, and we see a lot of bad guys. Like, right off the bat, we see Bowser, Zangief, Dr. Eggman, Um, I think it's one of the the ghost from Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. Yeah.
And one of the zombies, which I feel like probably isn't from a Call of Duty game, but definitely feels like it's a callback to that. And,
probably a reference.
Yeah, and Ralph, he basically expresses that apparently he hasn't been to one of these meetings in a really long time, and he finally blurts out that he just doesn't want to be the bad guy anymore, and the villains are quite shocked by this, because this is something explained as going turbo, and we'll learn about that more later in the movie. It's quite an important saying.
Oh, yeah.
And then Ralph heads on home, and we see this really big, like, grand, like, you know how you have those little extension leads just plugged into your wall with the 4 plugs? Well, to these video game characters, that is a grand central station. It is a huge, like, outlet. It's where all the outlets go, and there's a huge meeting of all these different game characters going from one place to another, and between shifts during the day and night, they could just go wherever they like and have breaks. And it's a really lovely scene. The music in this is fantastic as well.
Yeah.
And Ralph, on his way home, passes by Q*bert and a few other video game characters who are homeless, which is actually quite sad and brings up a nice concept of, like, what happens to the games at the arcades that are unplugged and taken away. Well, if the game characters can escape the game in time, they just become homeless. They have nowhere to live. And Ralph isn't, though he is a bad guy, he's not a completely heartless person, because he does nab a cherry from Pac-Man's and does actually give it to... He gives one of the 2 cherries to Q*bert, which is a really nice scene.
Yep, it is. And, it is, because, it is kind of sad, you know, if any video game that would be unplugged and that had those video game characters, you know, they wouldn't have any other game to be in and stuff like that, and because they'd be homeless.
Exactly. It's really sweet though that Ralph cares, and on his way home on the little cart where he's just barely weighing the little carts down back on his way to his game, he sees fireworks going off and everyone in the building is celebrating, and gets some glass bottles out as goggles or whatever, binoculars, and sees that everyone in the game is having a party without him, and so he obviously marches up in pure anger, which I couldn't blame him. He is a pretty essential part of the game, and ends up busting on the scene after a minute's awkward talk with Felix just outside the room. And, you know, he tries to play it cool, just saying he's coming for a slice of cake, but, you know, Big Gene, which is like the head of the Nicelanders apartment complex, I think Big Gene is actually played by Raymond S. Persai, I think his name is.
Yeah, like, I think he's a big part of, like, the Disney studios, and he would also go on to be best known for, say, the voice of Flash, the sloth in Wreck-It Ralph. You know, Zootopia also, you know, directed, and it, you know, that film was done by the same people who did Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh yeah, definitely. I might even review Zootopia as well. That's a really good movie too.
And I also want to point out about Big Gene, and I don't know how because, you know, I don't know, because how you'd be editing this and so on, if you could sort of picture. I remember my dad telling me this a few times. Big Gene almost, like, kind of reminded him of a young John Cleese, because he almost has, like, the same, like, the hairstyle and the mustache. And imagine
he does look like a young John Cleese, you're right.
Yeah, and imagine if John Cleese actually voiced Big Gene. That would have been cool.
That would have been great, just hearing that pompous British voice just come out of his mouth. That would be great. But of course, after this scene where Ralph, you know, he's angered by Gene just saying, "You're the bad guy who wrecks the building, you'll never live up here in the penthouse." And then Ralph literally blurts out, "If I won a medal, would you let me be on top of this cake with you guys?" And so that sets him off. Once he storms out in anger after destroying the cake, he goes to Tapper's, who... Can I just say, Tapper, his design, he looks so much like Mario. Like, just put the hat on him, he looks just like Mario.
I never thought of that. I never thought that he looked like Mario, because he looked like the tavern guy, you know.
He did, like, even, like, while I was in theaters, I remember saying to my mum, it's like, if you just put the Mario suit on him and put the hat on, he'd look just like Mario, I think it's because of the big nose and the cartoony eyes and the mustache. I think that's what made me feel like it looked like Mario.
Yeah.
And I think there was a rumor, there was one point, at the party, Felix said, when he heard a ring at the door, he thought it was Mario, fashionably late, because, you know, by the time this, I think by the time this movie takes place, it is, like, around the 90s, I believe, I think I heard in a rumor. It's like Mario games always came out late in the 90s, or something like that. And Ralph is told by Tapper to go around the back and maybe look for a medal, maybe someone left one behind. And of course, Ralph we run into two references. One of them is a mushroom from Mario. There we go, the Mario references again. And then he finds the Metal Gear Solid, bruh, the exclamation mark sound effect.
Yeah.
And Zangief's pants just in the box.
Yeah.
That raises a few questions.
The Mario references in this. Okay, all that we get of like Mario stuff being in this, you know, Wreck-It Ralph is, of course, you know, the mushroom, and specifically, of course, most notably Bowser, and you know, Felix, of course, mentioning Mario, and you know, even though that Mario did not appear in the first Wreck-It Ralph film, there were rumors, you know, saying that possibly, you know, Mario could be in the Wreck-It Ralph 2, and of course, which would be Ralph Breaks the Internet. But you know, there's that, and when we eventually, like, we could talk more about that, of course, when we review Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Indeed, we will. Yeah, we're definitely gonna. I think we will be reviewing the sequel since we're reviewing the first movie here, so we'll definitely get into that.
Yeah, and why not? Yeah, then Ralph, like, after those Easter eggs from the question mark and the mushroom, well, Ralph has bumped into this like soldier guy, which it turns out to be, you know, he's from this new installed arcade game, which is a shooter game, and which of course being Hero's Duty, and you know, because of mentioning of a medal, and you know, any chance I could come to your video game, blah blah blah. But then of course at one point, because this soldier, he is dramatized by all these bugs, you know, because you know, even since it's been 1 week since it first started, and already, because it's, you know, every single time, like, fighting off and shooting against the bugs, and, you know, the soldier gets knocked out at one point when, you know, he sees a bug on Ralph's shoulder, and then Ralph, like, locks him up in that closet. He takes his uniform, and it's funny that he puts Zangief's pants on him, and, you know, when he's on his way to Hero's Duty, he bumps into Q*bert, and, yeah, of course, Ralph gives away himself to Q*bert, and that's when, of course, when Ralph makes his way to Hero's Duty, yeah, he doesn't even realize what he's in for, and just seeing what is in the game and all the bugs, and he kind of messes it up a bit and causes the game to be over for the player, and you know she's like, what a ripoff, and yeah, and even Q*bert, he makes his way to Fix-It Felix game to, you know, inform Felix that, you know, Ralph's gone turbo. I mean, a little bit earlier, because Ralph was not in the game, and then it was detected, even by Mr. Litwack, that the game is busted, and yeah, and again, Q*bert coming in to inform them that Ralph's gone turbo, and that's when, yeah, Ralph, he proceeds his way up to the tower in the Hero's Duty game to get the medal, and that's when, yeah, he does get the medal, but then he accidentally sets off the Psybug eggs, and when Felix comes in and he first meets Sergeant Calhoun, and yeah, that's when Ralph accidentally, like, he gets an escape pod with one Psybug on his face, and they make their way to Sugar Rush.
Indeed, they do, and I think it's who was it that played Calhoun as well? Jane Lynch?
Yeah, I mean, I forgot her name at first, but yeah, I think, yeah, that's her name.
Excellent. So when Ralph does accidentally set off the escape pod, he goes flying out of the game, and of course Felix, as Ralph rushes past him and Calhoun, just crying for help inside of the chamber, Felix instantly recognizes it's Ralph, and Calhoun is more worried about the Psybug. We'll get into why pretty soon, just after this scene.
Oh yeah.
So Ralph goes flying all over Game Central Station and ends up flying into this sweet little game called Sugar Rush, and on his way through the tube he actually hits Sonic, who's just standing there, and he loses some rings. That was a neat Easter egg there.
Yeah, definitely.
As he flies through Sugar Rush, some candy cane clouds get caught in the exhaust, and they end up crashing the pod into some sticky toffee mountain and right through a candy cane forest. And as soon as the pod stops in its tracks on the ground after scraping a massive path through it, you think everything's over, but no, there's just an ejector seat blasting him and Ralph out. And whereas Ralph is able to quickly catch onto a tree and save himself, the bug could be doing better and falls into the swamp below and drowns.
Yep.
And it's at this point where Ralph quickly turns around and sees a massive set of words in the chocolate ocean below that says Sugar Rush. And we see that this is a Mario Kart-themed candy game. And it just looks... Oh, when I saw this place as a kid, I wanted to live here, dude. What kid wouldn't want to live in a place like this? It was lovely. And then it's at that moment where Ralph realizes, oh, I don't have my medal, where's my medal? And it's on top of a tree that the Cyberbuck had just fallen off of and is close to falling into the swamp as well. So Ralph quickly runs over to the tree and climbs up, and it's here where we meet Vanellope von Schweetz, played by Sarah Silverman. I love Vanellope. She is absolutely just brilliant in this movie and completely screws with Ralph while he's trying to climb this tree, and this annoying little child is just pestering him all the way to saying, hey, are you a hobo? No, I'm not a hobo, but I am busy. What's that? I couldn't hear you. Your breath is so bad it made my ears numb. And
yeah.
Being a kid when I first heard this, I couldn't stop laughing in the theater. It was gold.
Also, I was just going to say, when Vanellope was mimicking Ralph.
Indeed. It's like, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice. You're mimicking me.
That is rude. And that is rude. And this conversation is over. And this conversation is over.
Brilliant. And as Ralph just ignores her and continues to climb the tree, Vanellope does inform him, like, I wouldn't grab that next branch if I were you. But when Ralph grabs it, you notice something's a little different, as it's got a second stripe right in between the white and the red of the stripe of the candy cane tree, and then it disappears, and we learn that these specific trees are called double stripes, and double stripe branches break very easily. They just disappear, and then Vanellope looks up when Ralph is still right back down where he was just 2 seconds ago, hanging onto another branch, and sees the medal, and... we don't know why she's interested in the medal yet, but in the next scene we do learn why. So Vanellope races up, and Ralph follows closely behind, and in the end, Ralph falls right back down, and Vanellope makes off with the medal. But not before glitching, much to Ralph's confusion, and just says, see you, chump, and runs away. And then Ralph just falls into the swamp below, just to give him that extra push.
Oh, yeah. And, even, like, he's all covered in that green stuff, and then when he's trying to, like, chase down Vanellope, like, more, like, candy stuff gets on him, and, yeah, and, like, it almost looks like he's, like, well, and that's when, you know, he, like, scares all the citizens of Sugar Rush and Vanellope, because they think he's, like, this, like candy-ish monster or whatever.
During this scene, we also meet all the racers, and, most notably, King Candy, played by Alan Tudyk. I love Alan Tudyk and everything he's in, but this one really takes the cake, pun intended.
Alan Tudyk as King Candy, literally, I think, because, yeah, even I read about this, that literally, because he's doing a Ed Wynn impression, and imagine if Ed Wynn, like, the Ed Wynn, because, like, voicing King Candy.
Yeah, it's a really neat thing that he did there. I didn't even learn that until, like, a few weeks ago as well. It's like, oh, it's Ed Wynn, I didn't even know that the first time I saw it. But yeah, he's basically announcing just the rules of racing in Sugar Rush to the racers. The only way you can actually compete is if you have a coin, and of course Vanellope, having Ralph's medal, now does have a coin, so she sneaks a little poorly made go-kart in between the rest of the racers' cars and attempts to throw the medal into the little trophy in the middle and gets entered into the race, much to everyone's shock and surprise. King Candy doesn't mind too much about Vanellope. She doesn't think of her as that much of a threat, at least not publicly, but the other racers aren't too kind about it, as we'll see in a bit. And it's now, of course, when Vanellope tries to escape from the two police donuts, which are called Winchell and Duncan, appropriately named because one is based off of the Dunkin' Donuts, and the other one is based off of a different donut brand. I don't know what the other one's called.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But of course, right before Vanellope manages to escape, who should appear but Ralph, covered in taffy and candy, and everyone is they just forget about Vanellope. It's like, we gotta get away from this taffy monster. And of course, while Ralph is trying to chase Vanellope down, he wrecks everything. All of the podiums and everything, carrying the fans, and ends up getting himself trapped in a rock-solid cupcake. So Vanellope makes off with her little go-kart, now entered in the race. The racers follow close behind, and Ralph is brought to King Candy's castle.
Yep. And that's the, like, when we first see King Candy's castle and those Oreos, like, of course it's a nod to the Wizard of Oz with, the witches, guards, soldiers, like, because they're singing, instead of like in the Wizard of Oz, like how they sing it, oh hee ho, it's this time it's Oreo. And I feel like, like actually a while back, like my mom was telling me that it almost sounds like that the guards of the Wizard of Oz are like saying Oreo.
It does, and I remember as a kid being a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz, so I recognized that instantly. And in the theater, again, I was nudging my mum, being like, "Mum, that's what the guy's saying, Wizard of Oz." And you're like, "Yeah, I know." Oh, we both got a good chuckle out of that scene.
Oh yeah.
What happens next is King Candy unmasks Wreck-It Ralph and asks him what's he doing there, and of course he jumps right to the conclusion that Ralph is here because he's trying to go turbo and take over Sugar Rush. But it's at this moment Ralph tells King Candy that his medal was stolen by Vanellope, and King Candy unfortunately can't help him because the medal's nothing but code now, and will stay that way until someone wins the cup at the end of the race. And while Ralph passive-aggressively says, "I'll have to have a talk with the winner," King Candy completely denies and just demands that he's sent back home once he's gotten out of the cupcake, and then just leaves. And while Winchell and Duncan attempt to get Ralph out of the cupcake, he leaps out the window, breaks out the cupcake, and is on the run. And it's here where we get a Star Wars reference. As a kid, I could appreciate this because he's hiding. Ralph is just hiding from Winchell and Duncan in the lake, and is using, I think, one of those edible chocolate straws that you get with milkshakes as a snorkel, and you could just hear the Darth Vader breathing sound effect.
Yeah, that was great right there. As the Star Wars reference, and what better way for like the sound of him breathing than be Darth Vader's breathing.
Exactly. And Ralph quickly tries to like gather his wits and is not exactly sure how to get his medal back. And it's at this moment all the racers race past him on the way to the scrapyard where Vanellope is, and Ralph realizes, wait, the medal goes to the winning racer, so he chases after the kids quite quickly, and we see that they catch up with Vanellope, just making some adjustments to her car at the junkyard. And after some more passive-aggressive speech, Taffeta, Candlehead, and Rancis deserves his own movie. As a side note, Rancis is the best racer of them all. I really like him. For some reason, he speaks to me on a personal level. He was coming out of the movie. Just quick side note. He was my favorite character for some reason. Was the first one I drew a picture of as a kid. It's like this guy's the best one. He's my favorite. I think it's because he was a big guy on Reese's. He had Reese's peanut butter cups, and at that time they were my favorite snack. And he had blonde hair and everything as well, and blue eyes. I had blonde hair and blue eyes at that time. It was like a self-insert OC in a Disney movie. And it was just so funny to watch, but I loved it. And of course here, unfortunately for Vanellope, the racers just tell her she can't be part of the race, she is a glitch, those are the rules, and they quite violently just destroy her car outright. And as soon as Taffeta pushes Vanellope into a chocolate puddle, Ralph thinks enough is enough and just yells at all the racers, just roars at them and chases them off. Just scram you around little cavities before I throw you in the mud. And it's quite despite Vanellope being so rude to Ralph earlier, stealing his medal, he still stands up for her. And they make an agreement that's like, okay, you want the medal, I want a race, so here's what I'm thinking. You help me get a car, and I'll win the race for you and get you your medal back. So they reach some form of, not entirely friendship, but a temporary alliance.
Yep. While that's going on with Ralph and Vanellope, because not only with that going on, but also we also have we also cut between, say, Felix and Calhoun, and Felix joins Calhoun to like track down the Cybug, but obviously, yeah, like Felix like looking for Ralph as well, and yeah, because Calhoun is programmed with a sad backstory because on her wedding, and a Cybug came in and attacked and basically ate the man that she was going to marry, and also like as when they find the escape pod that crashed in Sugar Rush, even Calhoun questions about Ralph, and even Felix says that that Ralph might have gone turbo, and the whole thing of turbo is this. Back when the arcade first opened, and with of course the Fix It Felix game, one of the games that was there on opening day, well, when it first opened, I mean, was a game that had this character named Turbo and his catchphrase "Turbo-tastic," and there was another racing game that was installed too, and Turbo himself was so jealous that as Felix is explaining, he abandoned his game and basically like crashed in like the other racing game, and just wanting to get attention then is causing some glitching and so on, and he put that game out of order and his game out of order, and of course never to be seen again. And yeah, and even up to when, say, Calhoun and Felix, they fall into Nesquik, and these, like, purplish, like, laughing vines, like, the only way that they're laughing is, well, when Calhoun, like, kind of smacks Felix in the face, and, that's what makes them, like, laugh, and she keeps doing it. And even would say, Felix's face is messed up, and, he's like, I can fix it, using his hammer to fix his face, and the more they do this, like, well, the more she does it, smacking his face, the more that the vines keep laughing, and thus they grab onto one of the vines, and there's a little peek at it because they kind of start falling for each other, and even the vines, they're just singing la 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 and make a heart, and Calhoun just like okay, that's enough, and shoots her gun off in the air, and so there you go.
Yeah. It was a pretty fun, because she literally out of nowhere just pulls her gun out and fires it in the air. It's enough with the goo eyes. We got work to do. Let's go.
Exactly.
And it's here also when Calhoun asks Felix to fix the shuttle. He's like, sure, can do. And then we pan to just below the ground beneath them. The Cybug from earlier didn't die in the swamp. It merely just fell into an underground tunnel and is hiding. And is just watching everything unfold, and actually eats a piece of candy cane sticking out of the tunnel, and he turns from the normal hard shell black and green on the outside to a more purple and yellow candy cane texture on the outside instead, which is pretty interesting. It did make me think as a kid, what would happen if they ate water? Would they just turn to liquid? Or how come, like, this is a bit weird, because these creatures, it's explained that they are what they eat, so if they ate, like, a piece of chocolate, they would have a chocolatey texture or something. But how come, since they ate a person, they didn't turn into any sort of fleshy thing? That's kind of weird, because we see in the backstory a Cybug ate a person. But I guess this is video game logic, so I guess we could look past it.
Yeah.
So it's at this scene we cut back to Ralph and Vanellope, and they're sneaking into the go-kart factory. And Vanellope chooses a cart to make, and through trial and error, Ralph and Vanellope manage to pull off the minigame, which is quite fun. It's like a 1-minute segment of cooking it to the right degree, choosing the right ingredients, and texturing it, adding wheels, and it's a really cool scene. It's quite creative as well, with all the colours and different pieces and models of sprinkles and icing. It's great, but they end up making a whole mess of it and destroy everything. But Vanellope ends up loving her car, and this is when they truly start to form a friendship. But it's only here where, I think this is a reference as well, Beard Papa mentions they are, like, he wakes up from his nap after not doing a very good job at stopping them from going inside. He's like, oh, this is Beard Papa, the glitch is in the bakery, get me King Candy. And, of course, King Candy rushes in on the scene, and right when Ralph is just convinced, oh yeah, we can get out of here just fine, it's like, Vanellope just says, I don't know how to drive. You don't what? And of course a massive police chase ensues, which is quite fantastic. It's like between King Candy, Winchell and Duncan, and a massive like SWAT truck, but I think it's called something else. It's not called SWAT, I think it's just called Sweet or something. I can't remember. And they escape to Vanellope's secret home, which is in an unfinished bonus level area in Cola Mountain, or Diet Cola Mountain, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's here where Ralph is like, oh, well, we're not so different after all, because Vanellope has to stay all by herself in this secluded place, and she has no friends, everyone calls her an outcast. It's like, yeah, she's very related to Ralph, which is quite sad for her, because she is just a kid, she doesn't know how to deal with this kind of stuff, but yeah, Ralph feels pretty bad about it, and ends up making her an entire track and teaches her how to drive, and it's a really nice scene where we have like the Shut Up and Drive music in the background by Rihanna, I believe.
Rihanna, I think so.
Yeah, and it's there is a scene as well where Vanellope's not able to control her glitch at one point and almost crashes, because we see that the Mentos that hang from above at the top of the Cola Bottle Mountain, a few of them fall down and actually explode, and a few of them bits of the explosion nearly hit Ralph. It's quite funny.
I was going to mention about the mints, because that's pretty clever. That, you know what, I guess that's like Sugar Rush's own version of like a volcano, basically.
Yeah, and it's just everything about the design of Sugar Rush, because it's where the majority of the film is, so they had to be really clever with how they designed everything, and I think they pulled it off really well.
Yeah.
So shortly after this, Ralph and Vanellope are convinced that, Vanellope's totally got this. She's bound to win the race, and meanwhile, King Candy's worrying about the location of Ralph and Vanellope, and realizes, oh, what do I do? And then he thinks to himself, and walks off behind the curtains of his throne room, and we enter this kind of like a blue tunnel, like this tech Star Wars looking blue tunnel, and on a Nintendo, I think it's it's not an N64, it's like a Super Nintendo controller
NES.
on the wall. Oh, an NES, yeah. He pulls out this little napkin from Tappers, which has the code, and a lot of people can respect this. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, start, which is the classic cheat codes for Super Nintendo or just any kind of old-fashioned game. And it opens up this huge code room full of different bits and pieces of Sugar Rush that, like, it has the race's names, and it has all the different trophies and character profiles, all of it. And then he goes to the Winner's Cup and picks out Ralph's medal, and then goes to this huge centerpiece called King Candy, which I think he's basically cheated his way into this game, and we'll find out why just in the climax. And he puts Ralph's medal into this King Candy slot of the room, and around his neck appears the actual medal for Ralph. So he's like, yes, I've done it. So, Sour Bill, I'll be back soon. You're in charge of the castle until I get back. Which I think we actually forgot to mention Sour Bill. He is played by the director of the movie, Rich Moore, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, because Sour Bill, that he was a pretty funny character, and his personality. And right before we cut to the next scene, when King Candy leaves, we do see like in the corner or something like that, like Vanellope's code,
Yes, we see Vanellope's code has no connections to it like the rest of the other code, and it's like sparking, which means every time that spark happens, she glitches, which is rather interesting. Why is her code separated except for everyone else? Why is she the only one left out in the void?
And thus we will find out as, we proceed on in the review later on in the film.
Indeed. And right in the next scene, not shortly after returning to the Palace of King Candy, we go back to Felix and Calhoun, and Felix is just staring into the eyes of Calhoun while she's just trying to fly across the land. It's like, your face is still red. You might want to hit it again with your hammer. It's like, that's just the honey glow in my cheeks. And then Felix says something that triggers another flashback to the boy she was going to marry, by calling her a dynamite gal, and that just sends her right off and just kicks Felix right out of the pod, and she just goes off by herself. And then Felix goes knocking at the palace, and Sour Bill's the only one there, and asks, "Have you seen my friend Wreck-It Ralph?" Sour Bill responds with, "Oh, you mean like Wreck-It Ralph, big fist?" And it's like, "Yes, that's him." It's like, "Should have locked him up while we had the chance. Not going to make the same mistake with you." And sets off a trapdoor that drops Felix into a dungeon. Oh no.
Yeah, like, was that intentional to do that? To lock up Felix, and if they were, and when they were going to do the same to Ralph?
I think it might have been intentional, because Sour Bill has seen all the trouble Ralph caused. It's like, not gonna make that same mistake twice if you're an ally of his, so drops him into a dungeon before any damage can be done. So I guess I get why he did it, but he probably should have asked a few more questions to Felix before actually pulling that lever to put him in the dungeon, but whatever. We gotta move the plot forward in the movie somehow.
And just very quickly, because about the flashback part with, the guy that Calhoun was going to marry and so on, I swear, I noticed this, like, when watching this on DVD and Blu-ray, and when watching this on Disney+, the voice of that guy was actually changed. I swear I noticed this.
Yes, this is fact. This is true. It was changed, because when I watched it both on DVD and on Disney+, on DVD, it has the original voice that was always in the movie, but then for some reason on Disney+, he has like a higher sounding different voice that for some reason doesn't exactly match with the lip syncing that good, and I'm like, wait, why did they change it? What's wrong with the normal voice? It's like in the second movie when they changed Dan the Diamond Minecart's voice for the E-boy and switched it out for this squeaky young male boy child from New Jersey. I was like, what?
Uh-huh.
What? Why would they do that? It made no sense, but it happened. That's just Disney and Pixar and their weird, well, just Disney in this case, and their weird voice-changing role. I don't know why they did it, but on to the next scene here. Ralph and Vanellope are just about to head off to the race until Vanellope remembers, oh wait, I just forgot something, and she rushes back inside, and Ralph waits outside for her. But then King Candy pulls up, and Ralph is not pleased to see him whatsoever, and actually just throws a massive, like, piece of, I think it's a jelly tot, or like an oversized jelly tot at him. He's like, I've had enough of you, and he's like, no, just calm down, listen to what I gotta say.
Well, and then I was just about to say that one quick part right there with King Candy, you wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you? And he kind of does, smashes the glasses on his head, and, you hit a guy with glasses,
Yeah, that did win me over when that was in the trailer as well. That was actually quite funny.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, in the trailer as well, I thought he was always going to wear the glasses through the movie, but he doesn't. It looks like an entirely different character, but, it was just for a punchline, but I liked it.
Of course. Yeah, me too.
So it's then when King Candy pulls out Ralph's medal, and Ralph is quite, like, confused and shocked. It's like, how did you get that? It doesn't matter, just take it. And, Ralph is quite happy to see it, but it's at this point King Candy does say, I need you to hear me out, Vanellope can't race. And Ralph just goes right back to being angry. It's like, why is everyone so against her? It's like, we're not. We're just trying to protect her. It's like, clearly you haven't seen how the races act towards Vanellope, dude.
Yeah, because, well, that's the thing, like King Candy said, well, he didn't say we. He was just saying about himself, like, I'm not against it. I'm trying to protect her, etc.
Yeah. And it's here we actually learn quite a dark story about, like, not only Vanellope as a glitch, but any sort of glitch in a game. If Vanellope were to win the race, she would be added to the roster and everything, and that's all fine and dandy. Gamers can choose her in the avatar, but if they manage to actually spot her glitching, Litwack will think the game is broken, the game will be put out of order, everyone in Sugar Rush will be homeless, but however, there's one who can't escape because she's a glitch. And that's Vanellope, and when the game's plug is pulled, she will be killed along with everything in the game, which is quite dark.
Uh-huh.
So then Ralph obviously thinks, okay, I really can't let her race, because, they've grown a good friendship, but he can't risk losing her. So what he does is actually quite one of the saddest scenes in a Disney movie I've ever seen. He stops her from going to the race by keeping her like by her hoodie hung up on a lollipop tree and destroys the car right in front of her. And it's just in shambles and pieces, and Vanellope just cries and runs off back home.
And, like, the last words she says to Ralph right before running off, you really are a bad guy. And, yeah, I mean, even when also Ralph even said, like, before smashing it, to, like, keep saying some stuff, like, Ralph said, I'm doing this for your own good. And then, of course, he does smash it. Yeah, in the aftermath, like, okay, I'll go ahead and say this to help. Like Ralph, he does finally return back to his game and with his medal, but that's when he realizes that basically the whole entire arcade game, Fix It Felix, has been abandoned. And the last one to be there and in the building, of course, is Big Gene, and he informs Ralph that everybody left ever since he first left, and Felix never returned. Even say when looking for Ralph, and Ralph is like saying, this is not what I wanted, and like Big Gene's like, then what did you really want? And and then of course Ralph just feeling so bad, and he realizes that what. There's no point in having a medal, and he throws it. It hits like, say, the window, basically, even though it's like the screen to the video game. Yeah, that's when it kind of knocks off a little bit of, like, say, the piece of paper that Litwick taped on, and that's when Ralph can see outside of the real world, and he could see the Sugar Rush game, and on the back of it, like, say, the back, basically, he sees a picture of Vanellope, and that triggers Ralph, and he goes back to Sugar Rush.
Yes, and we literally just cut back to Sugar Rush, where the destruction site of Vanellope's car was, and Sourabill's just sitting there, just in his garbage get up, just sweeping up the mess, and then suddenly Ralph walks in on the scene and says, "Hey, Cough Drop, explain something to me. If Vanellope wasn't meant to exist, then why is her picture on the side of the game?"
Yeah.
And at the moment, Sourbill keeps his cool, but then all of a sudden just runs off in complete terror. It's like, oh no, he can't know. But Ralph manages to grab him and gets the truth out of him that Vanellope was once a racer until King Candy deleted her code. And apparently he locked up everyone's memories and no one can remember a thing. But if Vanellope if she manages to race and win, the game will reset and she will no longer be a glitch.
Yeah. I love that threat that Ralph was given to Sourbill. I wonder how many licks it will take for you to talk. And even say when he puts him in his mouth and finally Sourbill does talk.
Yeah, and he even references the classic Tootsie Pop, like a phrase like, how many licks will it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
Oh, yeah.
I did find that funny when I first watched the movie.
Ralph's comment on how Sourbill tasted, do you remember that?
Yeah, it's like, they call you Sourbill for a reason.
Yeah. And even Sourbill commented on Ralph's, like, the taste of Ralph's mouth.
Yeah, it tastes like sandpaper.
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking of that, yeah, and I almost forgot. Yeah, sandpaper, that's right.
Quickly, Ralph manages to find his way to the dungeon and quickly frees Felix. And Felix isn't too happy to see him. He only is at first, but only for like a second. It's like, okay, don't talk, that's fine, but I need you to fix this go-kart pronto. Which Felix is quite hesitant about. He's angry that he's had to go through every little bit of just complicated stuff to find Ralph, like drowning in chocolate milk mix, meeting Calhoun, and then she rejected him and then got locked up. And it's here when Ralph tells him that's like, I know how that feels, it's just every day of my life. It's why I ran off trying to be someone good, but I'm not. I'm just a bad guy. And the only thing left for me to do is this little girl whose only hope is this car. Please fix it and I'll never do this again. And this wins Felix over and he's like, sure, let's fix it. And then we cut to Vanellope, who is probably in the deepest, darkest cellar of the dungeon, or the Fungeon, as King Candy puts it, Fun Dungeon.
Yep, that's right.
And she's like chained to the wall, and I have to question here.
Well, no, she's not chained to the wall, like not up to the wall. It's just like she's like seated down, and a lot of chains are like connected to her. Like that's the best I can describe.
Oh yeah, like the chains are attached to the wall, but Vanellope is in like a glitch-proof lock in the middle on a little chair.
Exactly.
And she's just sitting there sulking about it. But I have to question, how did she get here? Was she found and captured? Did she hand herself into King Candy? Like, there's a scene missing here.
Yeah, my guess. Here's my guess. My guess is that maybe. Well, since then because it's obvious. It makes sense. Because after Ralph wrecked her racing car, and I just feel like a little bit later on she just realized, well, yeah, she's not gonna race anymore. She's not gonna have the chance to race, and to put it this, I assume that she must have turned herself in.
Yeah, she must have had the feeling like there really is nothing to lose. I'm just gonna hand myself in. I can't race anyway, so what's the point?
Exactly.
That's the most logical explanation here.
Yeah, exactly.
But after that, just after Vanellope's finished sulking and just being upset, Ralph breaks the door down, shows her cart is fine, and just apologizes for being an idiot and a numbskull and a selfish diaper baby and a stink brain. And it's a really cute scene. And then we go on to my favorite segment of the movie, the final race. Ooh, yeah, this is where the Mario Kart vibes really kicked in, and I got really excited in theaters just seeing the engines revving and getting ready to sweep the checkered floor and just hit the green go button, and with the count of 3, all the engines Thomas, get out of my head! All of the cars race down the track, and Vanellope takes a little bit of time to catch up because there's a massive X where her car should be like a no-show. She's a no-show, she can't be here. But Vanellope races over that X, and it turns green, and of course she's back on the leaderboard, so she races after the other racers, and it's here where we see a bunch of really cool parts of the race, which I really wish this could have been in like some sort of PS3 game, like a Sugar Rush game. And we had something like this. We'll get to this after the movie's finished, like after we finish talking about the film, and all the games that were made out of this movie briefly. So she goes through all the obstacles of like gumball machines, just spewing out gumballs and smacking the racers, and of course the items like ice creams and some sort of fire obstacle, which I can only assume is like hot
cherry
bombs and cherry bombs. And Vanellope's managed to catch up to Rancis, Candlehead, and Taffeta, and they are not too pleased to see her, so they set off some cherry bombs and say, you're just an accident waiting to happen. And then Vanellope goes out of control with the glitch again, and glitches in front of them, and they fly out of the cannon and are shot to the other side, but Vanellope's the only one who makes it. So, yeah, Vanellope's doing pretty well. She's in second place already, and she's not even halfway through the race yet. All the other races are pretty much history. It's just King Candy left. And when Ralph is like, great, okay, let's finish this without any more surprises, Calhoun jumps on the scene and punches him in the face and says, like, you have doomed this game. And Felix is like, yay, you came back. It's like, can it fix it? That cyborg you brought with you multiplied. It's like, no, it didn't. It died in the taffy swamp. And then we see the massive, like, I think we forgot to mention this. There was a scene earlier where Calhoun is looking for the bugs, but she falls below ground and sees like 1,000,000 eggs that were laid right beneath her feet. And here they all come out and swarm and destroy the signs and the stands and everything. It's a really intense scene, and the sky even starts to go green as well. It's really cool.
And while that's going on, like, the race is still continuing, and Vanellope catches up with King Candy, and up to when they're in this cave, and God, just King Candy becomes violent and like attacking, her cart, and that's when, because she grabs onto like the pole or whatever it is that King Candy has, when she grabs onto that and it, causes a glitch to that, well, we start seeing like something's up with King Candy, and even say Fix It and Ralph, they're seeing it too on the screen, and like Felix is like, is that? And then we see it's Turbo, and even Ralph's like, no way! And, like, Vanellope's like, "Who are you?" And then Turbo, says, "I'm Turbo, the greatest racer ever." And just that was a really great reveal right there of not it was he was not King Candy, he was Turbo, Turbo disguised as King Candy.
Yeah, and it does make a lot of sense, and it's rather sneaky and villainous that he was even able to escape the game he corrupted when he was still in business. It's like just before that game was unplugged, he was managed to escape somehow unnoticed and hide away with a new skin. Like, what would he have to have done to get to this new skin of King Candy? Because he would have to have gotten in the palace that originally did belong to Vanellope, I believe, because she was princess once.
Yeah.
And just sneak in and reskin himself. It's a really creepy concept, but it's a great plot twist I didn't see coming, and it's here that, we'll call him Turbo from now on, knocks down Vanellope's cart and is about to smash her in between a pillar in the middle of the road coming up, and Vanellope has managed to finally control her glitch and free herself from her grasp. And the next scene following genuinely scared me as a kid. I did not see it coming whatsoever. When Turbo's about to catch up to Vanellope and come out of the tunnel, a Cybug drops down at the exit and swallows King Candy whole. That genuinely did scare me as a kid, and I'm like, oh wow, that's dark. It's like, you think at this point, he's dead. There's no way he could survive that thing. That's a Cybug. He's dead.
I was literally gonna say that. Yeah, you think that, Turbo is done for after being eaten, but nope, he's become half himself, half Cybug.
Yeah, and it's a really creepy design as well. He's like, and he still has the glitch of him now, which we'll bring up a neat concept for that in a minute. But when Ralph tries to escape with Vanellope, she obviously can't leave her game, as Turbo stated earlier. And it's here when Ralph gets the idea, we need a beacon. The Diet Cola Mountain Mentos. If we can get enough of them to explode, that could create some sort of beacon. So he flies off to the top of Diet Cola Mountain and punches all of the Mentos repeatedly to make them drop down. And it's here when he's whacked by Turbo in his new Cybug virus form. And they fight to the death. And there's a scene here where he says, like, I can take over any game I want. Well, technically, no, you can't, because you're a glitch, so you can't leave now. It's like, he's still a glitch, despite being in his new form. It's like, the other bugs can go, but you're still trapped here. You can't do anything.
The look and design of Turbo, as now half himself, half Cybug, and, it's kind of like the Cybug is like in the form of, like, say, King Candy, and when it would glitch to, say, his King Candy look, I like the detail that there's like tattoo or like stripes on his King Candy form face,
Yeah, it's like with the Turbo head, it's just normal Turbo, but with King Candy, it's like his crown is like really sharp now, and he's got fangs and like antenna and all that. It's a really creepy design, but I love it. And it's at this scene where Ralph is like dragged by Turbo up into the air, and Vanellope is cornered, obviously, because she's not able to leave the game by a bunch of Cybugs.
Well, watch her die together, as King Candy says. Well, Turbo, that is.
Of course, and Ralph just looks down and realizes this is his moment. Like, he doesn't care if he dies doing this, as long as he gets to save his friend, he doesn't mind, so he finally frees himself from Turbo's grasp and falls down towards the Mentos, and Vanellope quickly rushes through all the Cybugs to quickly race after him and save him, but on the way down, Ralph delivers the speech like, I'm bad, and that's good, I'll never be good, and that's not bad, which we heard at the beginning of the movie.
And
it's a really sweet scene with the music and everything, and then the sudden thud that we see in the distance. It's quite heart-wrenching and everything, and he slowly falls, and he's about to be taken out with the lava and Mentos. So, as soon as he's about to be blasted into oblivion, Vanellope rushes in with one of the other race's cars, and quickly saves him and glitches out of the mountain, while everything explodes and all the Cybugs are lured out and into the beacon of Cola, and it actually works. And of course, at first, Turbo isn't fooled by this in his, normal Turbo head form, but as his
Yeah.
King Candy form, he is fooled by it because he's still under the possession of the Cybug spell.
Yep.
And,
And I just like
he tries to strain from it as well, which is pretty funny.
yeah, I just like that. Oh my gosh, like okay, when like he has his King Candy look, like his form, like he's like what are you guys doing? Why are you going to the light? Because when he now starts being affected by it, and did you notice there was that like organ like
Yeah,
music?
I love the organ music. When I listen to the soundtrack, I love hearing the organ music in the background. It's so menacing. It's so awesome. It's so creepy.
Yeah, it is, and because he's like Turbo fighting his regular self and his King Candy like identity and so on, and even when he's very close to the light, and when it's showing regular Turbo just like kind of screaming, and thus like that kind of sound when he enters into the light, he's done for, he's gone.
Yep, he is completely gone, and I don't know why some people made theories he would return. That does not look like something anyone would be able to come back from.
Yeah, I feel like I was just gonna say I feel like I might have heard that, like the possibility of maybe he would have found his way in the internet or something, and Ralph breaks the internet. But yeah, of course that never came to be, and of course Turbo never appeared in Ralph breaks the internet. So those rumors and theories that they were wrong.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it would have been cool to see him, but what we got anyway was, it wasn't perfect. But we'll get into that another time.
Yeah.
But next, of course, we see Vanellope's cart is all fixed up from her little crash after the Cybugs wrecked her car.
Yeah. And two things that we forgot to mention. Ralph finally likes chocolate because they fall into like the chocolate river, and Felix and Calhoun, they finally get together.
Ah, yes, of course, with the little kissing scene with the love hearts and everything, which is really funny.
Yeah.
And of course, Vanellope crosses the finish line, the game is reset, her code is restored, the memories that were locked up of the racers and citizens are freed, and they realize, oh, now I remember, and Sour Bill announces, all hail the rightful ruler of Sugar Rush, Princess Vanellope. And the racers at this point are like, oh no, she was our princess. We are so sorry about the way we treated you. Yeah, those were jokes. And it's another thing about Rances here, his accent changed in the second movie, because in this one it was, I think it was more of a, correct me if I'm wrong here, it was more of a Jamaican accent in this movie, but it was changed to a normal American accent in the second one. It was a little weird.
That I can't remember, actually.
Yeah, it was brief, like, for every time he talks, which is not much in the first movie, but he does kind of have a Jamaican accent in the first movie, which is kind of weird. Don't know why they changed it, but, nah. And Vanellope obviously says, as your princess, I hereby decree anyone who's ever mean to me shall be executed. And I'm like, wow! I mean, they deserve it, but,
Yeah. But of course she was just kidding.
She was just kidding in the end, and the quote from Calhoun's like, oh, this place just got interesting.
Like, Calhoun's enjoying this.
Yeah, and I was like, I think there was even fan art of that one segment. It's like where Vanellope has the racers lined up. I'll pull it up on the screen if I can find it for you guys. There is fan art of Princess Vanellope with the racers chained, walking in a line, with Ralph next to her looking unsure. And Vanellope's just like, this way, everyone. And I was like, oh, that's dark. I remember seeing that as a kid. I hope I can find that fan art again.
I'm sure you can, and God, I never knew that'd be turned into fan art.
Yeah. It was brief, but I loved it. I really hope that wasn't a dream, but we'll see. And of course, we end off the movie with Vanellope now being happy with her new life as a princess, but she doesn't really want to be a princess. She's the racer. She can glitch from here to there to everywhere. And also, Rances gives her a look. Oh, shippers, watch out. I will zoom in on that face as well, that Vanellope and Rances make at each other. Oh boy. My shipping senses were tingling.
Yeah, and Vanellope is able to like leave Sugar Rush at any time and like go to Game Central Station and so on.
Of course, because the glitch is now more of a power rather than something keeping her from leaving, which is great.
Exactly.
And of course, she does say one final goodbye to Ralph and offers him the chance to stay, but he's already happy with the game that he has, and he's just happy to have the coolest friend in the world. And he's got a duty to do, and it's a big duty, which is a joke brought up just when they first meet and make the agreement to look for a new cart and stuff. You'll hear it earlier in the movie when they first actually agree on something. But yeah, it's a cute scene. And they throw insults, like friendly insults at each other on their way out. And, you know, Vanellope's all cool with the races now when they run away together to race, assuming. And Ralph and Felix go with Calhoun in the pod and race out of the game. And we conclude the movie with Ralph being more happy with the life he has now. They gave the gameless characters a home. Q*bert and the crew, as a bonus level, which is really neat. Built a new bunch of apartment complexes for these characters.
Ralph and the bad guys of Q*bert, you know, they're wrecking the building, and Q*bert and Felix, you know, we can fix it, and that gets a lot of attention from other gamers and placing their quarters, you know, to play the next game.
Yeah, which is actually something kids did back in the 80s and 90s. It was like a quarter line, so every time someone was done playing the game, they can grab a quarter from the line and just stick it in the machine, which is really neat. I didn't know that at first.
Yeah, me neither.
And the film ends with, of course, what was next? Oh yeah, Felix and Calhoun end up getting married. Not a single bug either, because there's a bunch of triggers pointed at the window this time.
Oh yeah, and if there was a bug, they'd be ready to shoot, and that bug would go down.
Oh yeah, and of course we close off the picture with Ralph about to be thrown off the building again, but he's not too sad about it anymore. And is lifted up just high enough to see Vanellope racing, and the kids love her, glitch and all. And doesn't need a medal to tell him he's a good guy, because as long as Vanellope likes him, how bad can he be?
Exactly.
And then we get the credits with the classic song "When Can I See You Again," which was played in my school many times, and I loved it after this movie.
Yeah.
And that was Wreck-It Ralph.
That was Wreck-It Ralph. Yeah.
So, let's go to you first. What were your overall thoughts on the movie?
Well, in the end, I think this movie was so well done. It was freshly creative, and all the things that were done in this film, like the ideas of what video game characters are like, when video games are game over and so on. Even when say the arcade closes. The characters were well written, and their personalities, and when interacting with all the others, the friendship that was built in this film with Ralph and Vanellope was well done, and the romance and such, building up with Fix-It Felix and Calhoun was pretty well done and funny too. And the villain, of course, King Candy. At first, he's King Candy, but then of course it's revealed that he's Turbo. He was a pretty good villain, too, and just very evil at times, even up to the end. And all the video game, cameos we get, of course, from Sonic the Hedgehog, most notably Bowser, Robotnik. And I also kind of noticed this, even in one big shot of Game Central Station, you do see a T-Rex in the background. Actually, that T-Rex was from Meet the Robinsons, and basically there was a video game.
I knew I'd recognize that T-Rex from Meet the Robinsons. I knew it was the same one.
Yeah,
I knew it.
The T-Rex, and I think I heard about this, if you remember this, if any of you remember this, because if you've had the DVD and Blu-ray, and that goes for you too, Amazing Gamer, if you have the DVD and Blu-ray, and if you have it set to where whenever you would pause the movie, then Chris Hardwick would show up and he would give you some fun facts. He gives a fun fact about, say, the T-Rex appearing, and apparently there's this one arcade game that has the T-Rex. But it also has, even though I guess we don't see him appearing, Lefty, the butler octopus from Meet the Robinsons, they basically have their own arcade game, and that is of course in the world of the Wreck-It Ralph film.
That's really cool. I didn't know that more than the T-Rex from Meet the Robinsons made an appearance. That's really cool.
Yeah. So anyways, so cameos we get, from video game characters, including, say, characters from past Disney films, like, of course, most notably the T-Rex. And also, like, Pac-Man and the Ghosts, they made cameos, of course, and Q*bert as well. I keep forgetting, because Q*bert was a thing. And it had some emotional stuff to it, of course, some funny moments, and definitely the music was fantastic, and of course the song that plays during the credits is a pretty good song too. I think, my mom likes that song too, definitely. But overall, I love Wreck-It Ralph. It's such a fantastic film, and for it being one of the Disney, during the early 2010s, it's just an amazing film, and definitely because, I have reviewed this before just myself, and I'm still going to do this. Like, I'm rating this. I'm giving this a 10 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10, no doubt in my mind. It deserves that and a slice of cake. It really does. It's a great movie. The writing was great. The characters were really in-depth. I really did care about them and where they were going. The villain, Turbo, the plot twist with Turbo, I didn't see coming from a mile away. Even if I first watched this as an adult, I wouldn't have seen that coming at all. Because there was no foreshadowing. Other than just the voice of Turbo. But even though it was, like, distorted and a little brief, you would barely even be able to tell. Because he speaks for such a short amount of time and says one word. So you'd never tell.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, because, even by the voice of Turbo, like, it still didn't come to me, because, again, he only has one line, and of course, in the flashback and the story that Felix tells, because we only hear him say, Turbo-tastic, we don't hear him fully talk, because, again, he only has that one line. That still got us, that was amazing, that we didn't realize, even by hearing Turbo's voice, that Turbo was King Candy this whole time. Exactly,
and not even to mention the cameos in this movie as well. Like, it's great that we got, we got Beard Papa and Sonic the Hedgehog, who was also voiced by Roger Craig Smith, who is one of the most known voices for Sonic, so it's great that they got him in this. They got Ken from Street Fighter, pretty sure one of the characters from Dance Dance Revolution, or Just Dance, I think. Some really great characters in this movie that appeared for a short time.
The one that was dancing, is she the one that says, all clear, the arcade is closed?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, her. And I'm sure that if, because speaking of Roger Craig Smith, I'm sure if they got Mario, they would have gotten the voice of Mario for sure.
Yeah, Charles Martinet, I think his name is.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And there was even a rumor he was meant to be in the sequel as the villain. What were we thinking?
I mean, for that matter, you know what? People could have also clearly thought that he would have cameoed as, voice cameoed as Mario.
Yeah, because, Sonic even appears, twice in this franchise, in the first and second movie, as well as most of the other characters from the first movie. And, when we review the second film, guys, there's going to be a lot to go over, because there were a bunch of deleted scenes, plot points, new characters that we would never have thought would be in a sequel for Wreck-It Ralph. I might even review other Disney movies, because for some reason I really want to review Cars 2. I really do.
And I'd be up joining you reviewing Cars 2, because Cars 2 is my favorite in the Cars films.
It's mine as well. I gotta admit, the music is great and the story. We'll get into all that in its own review, and I can't wait for that. But,
me too.
Yeah, final ratings, a 10 out of 10. Final thoughts, this is a must-see for any Disney fan. And Disney, just to you, Disney, with this being nothing to do with Pixar, you guys did such an amazing job of, world-building, character animation, effects, music as well. It was all just so gold. The choice in voice acting, I would have never imagined it all to be so big and bombastic like this. The trailers, which were ultimately nothing like the film in the end, it advertised it as a crossover movie when it was not really much of that. That was all just in the first act. but it was still great nonetheless. And was there anything else I wanted to say? Yes, the games. There were games made out of this movie, which is interesting. Which was the original Fix-It Felix, a Hero's Duty game, and Sugar Rush. But unfortunately, though, with Flash no longer being available, they are no longer playable, which stinks, because I kind of wanted to play all of those on a Tags Play series, but oh well, maybe if Flash comes back at some point in the future, it's going to happen, but until then...
And I think, there was also an actual arcade game made of Fix-It Felix. I've seen, videos and such of that.
Yeah, there was even behind the scenes where you could see Fix-It Felix's voice actor playing it, which is really cool.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, really great movie, fantastic characters, awesome storytelling. Disney, you really pulled the stops here. I love this movie, always have, always will. Little Blue as well loves the film. We both love it. Give it a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
It's just a great film. It's a must-watch. So that's all from us today, folks. Hope you all enjoyed our review of Wreck-It Ralph, and next time we'll be touching some other film. I'm not sure which one, but we'll
figure
find
it out.
something. Yeah, we'll find something interesting. So until then, we'll see you guys next time, and thanks for watching. Take care, guys.
Take care.